Captain Reed Halverson stepped onto the Nebulastra Palace's highest observation deck and paused, taking in the sight before him. The hall was vast and shining, lit by soft violet light that filtered through towering crystalline windows. Though he had seen images of alien palaces before, nothing prepared him for this. Marble pillars spiraled toward the ceiling, and golden filigree traced elaborate patterns along the floor. Everywhere he looked, courtiers in silken robes drifted like colorful birds. Reed felt the weight of 100 pairs of eyes upon him. He was the first human envoy ever invited to Veteran Prime, and his armor marked him out as a soldier. The sleek plates of his power suit clinked faintly as he walked, each movement echoing across the polished stone. He had hoped his armor would give him confidence. Instead, it made him feel clumsy in this elegant world. At the far end of the chamber stood Princess Saylara, heir to the Astrosa Empire. Though she had only just turned 19, she carried herself with a quiet power that made nobles bow their heads in respect. Her hair was silver like moonlight, and her eyes glowed faintly emerald, the mark of her royal bloodline. Reed had heard rumors of the Empire's pride, its fierce warriors, and its strict codes of etiquette. Now he saw those codes in action. "Welcome, Captain Halverson," she said, her voice smooth as polished glass, but with a playful edge. Her smile did not reach her eyes. "I trust your journey from Earth was enlightening?" Reed inclined his head and forced a polite smile. "Yes, Your Highness, the voyage was peaceful and swift." She laughed, a soft, tinkling sound that echoed among the pillars. "Peaceful? On a human ship? You must have far fewer passengers than we do." Her gaze flicked to his armor. "And I see you brought all your war trophies with you." A ripple of laughter ran through the assembled nobles. Reed felt his cheeks burn beneath his helmet. He had been briefed on court manners, but no one had warned him that princesses could be so sharp. He cleared his throat. "This armor is standard issue for my rank. It is meant to protect me in dangerous situations." "Dangerous situations," she repeated, tilting her head. "On a planet known for its diplomatic grace and mutual respect?" She stepped forward, her robes whispering over the marble. "Surely, Captain, you do not expect us to believe that Earth is so full of dangers that its ambassadors must march in steel?" Her lip curled in mock pity. "Do your delegates always parade around like walking tanks?" Reed swallowed. He had studied Astrasan customs, but the princess's mockery struck deeper than any formal insult. Protocol called for calm replies, but he had trained as a soldier first and a diplomat second. He spoke from the heart. "On Earth," he said, "we learn to carry our past with us. Sometimes that past is heavy and the armor keeps its weight at bay." Princess Sayalara's eyes narrowed. "Heavy?" she repeated. "Or insecure?" She leaned closer, so close that Reed could see the tiny flecks of violet in her iris. "If you cannot stand before me in your own skin, Captain, then you stand for nothing at all." Silence fell. The courtiers exchanged uneasy glances. Reed's hand tightened on his helmet, but he did not back down. Instead, he squared his shoulders and met her challenge. "Your Highness," he began, voice steady, "this armor is more than metal to me. It is a symbol of the lives I carry in my heart, my family, my friends, my home. It reminds me of the promises I made to protect them." The princess regarded him in silence, as though studying a rare specimen. Reed took a breath and added, "If I have offended the court, I ask your pardon, but I will not apologize for carrying my memories." For a moment, Sayalara said nothing. Then she laughed, this time colder and sharper. "Memories?" she repeated, strolling back to her dais. "Captain, your memories are as quaint as your armor. They belong in a museum, not in the council of a galactic empire." Reed bowed his head. He fought the urge to rip off his helmet then and there, but he held himself back. The audience watched, rapt. He could sense their curiosity growing, wondering how the humble human soldier would respond when faced with royal disdain. A court chamberlain stepped forward and cleared his throat. "Your Highness, the human envoy is here to discuss the new trade treaty between Earth and the Astrosa Empire. Saylara waved him away. Very well, but tell me this, Captain Halverson. What makes your kind so confident? Is it your technology, your numbers, or is it simply arrogance? She paused for dramatic effect. Perhaps it is because you hide behind that clanking suit and feel brave when no one can see your true face. Reed felt a surge of anger but also a strange calm. He realized that no amount of armor could truly hide his fears. Better to let her see him, unguarded. He reached behind his back, unfastened the first clasp, and removed his helmet. The court gasped. Reed held the helmet in his hands and lowered his arms, letting the gentle violet light play across his unarmored head. His dark hair was cropped close. His face was weathered from solar winds and long nights under distant suns. A faint scar ran along his jaw, a souvenir from a skirmish on Mars. He stood bareheaded and unshielded, vulnerable. Silence reigned. Reed let the moment stretch, giving the assembled nobles time to react. Some whispered, others frowned. Saylara stared at him, her emerald eyes wide. At last, she spoke. Her voice was quieter, almost unsure. You would remove your armor at my insult? She asked, as if surprised by her own words. Why would you do that? Reed raised his head and met her gaze. Because my bravery does not come from metal or genes. It comes from the fact that I face the world as I am. I am not ashamed of who I am. I am human, and I will stand unshielded if that is what it takes to be seen as a person. A murmur of admiration rippled through the court. The chamberlain bowed his head in respect. Reed felt something shift in the icy grand hall. The princess's arrogance had met its match. Sayalara's lips pressed together. She took a step forward, closing the distance between them. You are different from what I expected, she admitted softly. More honest. She paused, then studied his face more closely. Captain, leave your helmet here. Let it rest. We will speak again. Soon. Reed nodded and set his helmet on a nearby pedestal carved from white marble. The metal looked out of place among the palace treasures, like a lone soldier among diplomats. He turned to face the crowd, unarmored but unbowed. As he did, the doors at the back of the hall whispered open, and soft light spilled in from the palace gardens. Reed sensed the energy in the chamber shift. For the first time, the Astrosa Empire saw a human not as a curiosity or a potential threat, but as an individual worthy of respect. In that moment, Reed realized how deep the gulf between their worlds truly was, and how wide the bridge of understanding could become. Princess Saylara still stood before him, unyielding but suddenly attentive. Reed knew that the real test was just beginning. But for now, he had made his statement. He was more than armor, more than a soldier. He was a man with a heart strong enough to stand naked before royalty and leave her speechless. The nobles leaned forward, their eyes bright with new interest. Reed took a steadying breath. The royal insult had given way to something far more powerful, genuine curiosity. And in the heart of the Nebulastra Palace, under violet lights and the watchful gaze of an alien heir, humanity had made its first unshielded impression. Late that same night, the grand doors of the Nebulastra Palace's guest wing closed softly behind Captain Reed Halverson. The echo faded, leaving only the hush of silken curtains and distant palace music. Reed walked slowly down the marble corridor, each step measured. He felt the weight of eyes long turned away, as though unseen courtiers still watched his every move. The violet glow from the corridor lamps painted his armor in surreal hues. Reed reached his private quarters at the end of the hall. The door was carved from pale wood, inlaid with iridescent gemstone patterns that shifted in color as he approached. Inside, the room was a study in contrast to the palace's grandeur. Simple walls, a low bed piled with soft furs, and a single wooden chest. He closed the door behind him and leaned against it, closing his eyes. He ran his hand down the front of his suit. The plates were cool under his fingers, hard as the rocks of Earth's mountains. Outside, Veteran's twin moons glowed through a nearby window, their light slanting in silver beams across the floor. Reed could hear a soft murmur from the palace gardens below, the distant drip of fountains. It all felt miles away from the dusty training grounds of his home. He took a deep breath and began to unfasten the clasps. The first was at his neck. A quick snap. The metal plate fell away, revealing the collar of his undersuit. The second clasp took longer. He paused as he unhooked it, remembering the day he first donned this armor, when he'd sworn to defend his world. Each plate he removed carried a memory. Piece by piece, Reed peeled off the heavy plating. His boots were first, then the shin guards. His greaves clattered softly on the floor. With each plate dropped, he felt lighter, though also strangely exposed. When the final piece came off, the breastplate, Reed let it slip to the ground. The hard click echoed in the quiet chamber. He stood in simple fabric clothing, a faded tunic, worn trousers, and soft boots. This attire was common among Earth's border scouts, nothing impressive but comfortable. Reed ran his hand over the fabric, smoothing out wrinkles. He felt suddenly fragile, as though a strong wind might knock him over. On the low table beside the bed lay a small wooden box. Reed opened it and pulled out a silver dog tag, worn and scratched. It bore his mother's name, engraved in neat letters, Leora Halverson. His heart tightened. He closed his eyes and let the tag hang from his fingers. The weight of it was nothing compared to the weight of the memories it carried. He remembered home, the red soil of the farm where he grew up, the wide blue sky never disturbed by alien stars. He remembered his mother's gentle voice calling him in for meals. He remembered the smell of baked bread and the hum of old tractors. He remembered how he had longed as a child to see those moons he could now glimpse through palace windows. Reed pressed the dog tag to his chest. "I carry you with me," he whispered to the empty room. His voice sounded small. He closed his eyes and let memories wash through him. He saw his first campfire on Mars, where he had watched Earth rise like a green jewel in the sky. He saw his father's proud face when Reed enlisted in the Earth Defense Corps. He saw himself, younger and braver, dreaming of starships. A soft chime sounded on the table. Reed opened his eyes. A small device blinked with a pale blue light. An invitation. Message from Princess Scylla herself. She requested his presence at dawn to continue their talks. Reed nodded at the message. He knew he could not avoid her forever. He placed the dog tag back in its box and closed the lid. He gathered his loose clothes into a neat pile and set them beside the bed. Then he sat on the edge of the mattress and leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. He studied his unarmored hands. They were calloused from years of work, but they were human hands. Hands that built, that healed, that held. He ran his fingers along a faint scar on his left knuckle, a souvenir from defending a settlement in the asteroid belt. That scar felt more real than any suit of armor. It told a story of pain faced head-on, not hidden behind metal. Reed sat a long moment, letting himself remember why he fought. Not for glory, but for peace. In the quiet room, Reed thought about Princess Scylla. He had seen the flicker of surprise in her eyes when he removed his helmet. He could imagine her now, pacing in her private chambers, wondering what motivated this strange human. Was he brave out of fear? Or was it something deeper? He drew in a steady breath. He would meet her tomorrow without armor. He would speak his mind. He would let his true self stand before her, flaws and all. If she mocked him again, he would not hide. His unarmored skin would bear the insult, not a shell of steel. Reed stood and began to prepare. He laid out his simple tunic and trousers on a stool near the door. He arranged the dog tag around his neck, letting it rest against his chest. He smoothed his short hair with his hand. He felt oddly calm, as though shedding the armor had lifted a cloud from his mind. He glanced at the window. The two moons had moved across the sky, one now higher than the other. A quiet breeze rustled the curtains. Reed touched the windows, cool glass, and looked out at the palace gardens. The fountains glowed like stardust below. He felt a small thrill of excitement. Tomorrow, he would show the Empire who humans truly were. Reed turned from the window and walked to the door. He stopped, hand on the carved handle, and looked back at his quarters. The piles of armor plates lay on the floor like fallen monuments. He offered them a silent nod of thanks. They had kept him safe, but now he needed no shield. He opened the door and stepped into the corridor. The violet lamps cast long shadows at his feet. He walked with measured steps, but this time there was no clang of steel, only the soft whisper of boots on marble. As he went, he felt the gaze of unseen watchers, curious and unsteady. They had seen the soldier in armor. Now they would see the man within. Reed paused at the end of the corridor, where it met the busy main hall. He could hear the low murmur of voices as preparations began for the morning council. He straightened his shoulders. His heart beat firmly, free of the echoing clang he had grown used to. With one last deep breath, Reed stepped forward. He was no longer just a captain in power armor. He was Reed Halverson, son, soldier, human. And he carried his past, unarmored, into the heart of an alien empire. Morning light spilled through the high windows of the council chamber. Princess Scialara stood at the head of the long table, her silver hair catching the pale glow. Captain Reed Halverson entered without armor, his simple tunic soft against the smooth marble floor. A hush fell over the assembled nobles as he took his place beside the princess's seat. He bowed his head in respect, then straightened and met Scialara's gaze. Across the table, alien lords in brilliant robes shifted uneasily. Some leaned forward, curious how the unshielded human would face formal diplomacy. Others frowned, uncomfortable with his lack of armor. They had hoped to see a warrior glinting with metal. Scialara tapped the table with a slender finger and spoke in measured tones. Captain Halverson, Earth has requested this council to discuss terms of trade and alliance. You may begin. Reed nodded once, then looked around the room. He saw doubt in the noble's eyes, but also hope. He drew in a breath and began. Esteemed members of the Astrosa Council, he said, voice clear and even. I thank you for this chance to speak. Earth offers more than technology and resources. We offer friendship, cooperation, and shared knowledge. A murmur rippled through the chamber. One advisor whispered to another, then pointed at Reed's bare arms. Reed felt their gaze but did not falter. He lifted his hand, palm open. On Earth, he continued, we have faced disasters, storms that flood our cities, fires that sweep our forests, and sickness that tests our healers. In each trial, we learn to come together. Different peoples, different nations, standing side by side. That is the spirit I bring here. The chamber fell silent. Even Scialara looked thoughtful. Reed pressed on. We do not claim to be perfect, he said. We have made mistakes, but each mistake taught us humility. We learned the true strength lies not in hiding behind walls or armor, but in standing together, honest and unarmed. One elder lord raised a pale hand. His voice was crackling like dry leaves. Captain, you speak of unity and trust, yet we know very little of your world. Why should the Astrosa Empire risk its safety on promises of a species we barely know? Reed met the question calmly. I understand your caution, he replied. Trust must be earned. That is why I stand here without armor, to show you I have nothing to hide. I carry only my word and my will to work with you. He paused, letting his words sink in. In the far corner, an ambassador from another system tapped his chin, intrigued. Reed used the quiet to gather his thoughts, then offered a simple request. Allow a small joint mission, he proposed. Send your brightest engineers with my crew to help build a new hydroponic farm on Veteran Prime. Let us prove our promise through action. A ripple of discussion swept the room. The lords exchanged glances, weighing the offer. Reed held his breath. Finally, Scialara raised her hand for silence. Your proposal is bold, she said softly. Hydroponics may strengthen our food supply, but it also brings human methods into our sacred lands. Are you prepared to respect our customs and work under our rules? Reed inclined his head. I will follow your laws and customs. I will learn from your people, and I ask only that you learn from us in return. A tall noble with green-streaked hair spoke next, his voice deep and echoing. Captain Halverson, you speak of learning and sharing. Yet human history is long, and we know your kind has waged wars among yourselves. How can we be sure you will not turn on us later? Reed met the question directly, without defensiveness. We have fought our own wars. We have shed our own blood. But we have also learned to move past them. Since the Terran Accord 50 years ago, Earth has not engaged in open conflict. We chose dialogue over destruction. He held their gaze. Our record stands as proof of our sincerity. Saylara leaned forward, her emerald eyes steady. You offer proof. Yet proof must be in deeds, not words. She turned slightly to Reed. Very well, Captain. We accept your offer of joint mission. But on one condition. Reed inclined his head again. Name it, Your Highness. Sayalara's lips curved in a faint smile. You will serve not only as leader of your engineers, but also as cultural envoy. You will spend a full week living among our farmers, learning our ways, sleeping in our homes. Only then may you help build the farm. Reed's heart quickened. The honor of living among common citizens was rarely granted to off-worlders. I accept, he said softly. A murmur of surprise and admiration ran through the nobles. The Astrosa Empire valued propriety above all, and Reed had shown humility by agreeing to humble service. Saylara nodded, pleased. Very well, she declared. The council consents. Let the joint mission depart at first light tomorrow. She tapped the table once more. We will meet again at week's end to review progress. Dismissed. Reed bowed deeply, then stepped back. The chamber doors opened and the courtiers filed in to clear the hall. Reed walked past them, his unarmored form a symbol of trust and honesty. Whispers followed him, some praising, others skeptical, but Reed held his head high. As he left the council chamber, Princess Saylara fell into step beside him. They walked through an archway into a quiet corridor. Reed glanced at her. Your Highness, he said, thank you for your trust. Saylara looked at him with a mix of respect and curiosity. You spoke well, she said. You have a gift for words and for humility. Reed smiled. Words alone do little. I hope my actions will speak louder tomorrow. Sayalara's lips curved in a genuine smile. We shall see, Captain. We shall see. They reached a balcony overlooking the palace gardens. Silver fountains danced in morning light, and alien flowers bloomed in strange colors. Reed breathed deeply of the fresh air. It smelled of dew and jasmine, nothing like the dry wind of earth. He turned to Saylara. I look forward to learning your ways, he said. She regarded him thoughtfully. And I look forward to learning yours. She paused, then added quietly, You have changed the Council's view of humans today. Reed felt a warmth in his chest. Then I have done my duty. Saylara studied him a moment longer, then nodded. Return to your quarters. Prepare for tomorrow. The farmers await you at dawn. Reed inclined his head and turned to leave. As he did, he caught a final glimpse of Sayara's thoughtful expression. She watched him go, her mind already moving through the plans for the mission. Alone on the balcony, Reed touched the dog tag at his neck. He whispered a promise to Earth and to the Astrosa Empire. I will not fail. He stepped back from the railing and walked through the corridor's violet glow. Behind him, the council chamber buzzed with hushed debate and anticipation. The uneasy embassy had become a bridge between two worlds. Reed Halverson, unarmored and unbowed, would soon prove that humanity's greatest strength lay not in metal and weapons but in compassion, humility, and the will to work alongside others for a common goal. At dawn's first light, Captain Reed Halverson stood with Princess Saylara on the terrace of the hydroponic farm site. The air was cool and crisp, and the twin moons hung low in the sky like pale sentinels. Around them, Astrosa farmers in simple robes prepared the gleaming structures of glass and metal. Reed had spent the last week living among these people, learning their farming methods and sharing stories of Earth's greenhouses. He had worked alongside them at dawn and sat beside them at dusk, and in that time he felt their respect growing. Princess Saylara watched him quietly. In that week she had seen him rise before the sun, help load seedlings into germination trays, and repair broken pumps with nothing more than a toolkit and determination. She had also seen him comfort a frightened child whose pet orchid wilted, using gentle words and careful hands. Each act had shown her a side of humanity beyond the armor and the court. But this morning, the quiet promise of growth was shattered. A low, urgent haze of alarms rose from the control tower near the power reactor. The small outpost that powered the farm, the fusion reactor on Veteran Prime's moon, had tripped offline. Without that power, the hydroponic lights would go dark in minutes, and the young plants would freeze in their nutrient solution. Sayalara's brow furrowed. "What happened?" she asked, voice tight. An engineer ran up, sweat on his brow. "A micro-asteroid strike, Your Highness. It breached the external coolant line. The reactor is overheating. We have 10 minutes before shutdown." Panic flickered in the farmers' faces. Without power, their crops would die, and weeks of trust building between humans and Astrosands would be lost. Reed felt his heart quicken. He glanced at Saylara. "We can fix this," he said calmly, "but we need to go outside and patch the line. We'll have to jury-rig a seal until we can get a proper repair." Sayalara's eyes widened. "But the repair drones are offline. The docking clamps are damaged. It's too dangerous for anyone but a trained EVA crew." Reed nodded. "I'm a soldier. I've done EVA repairs before. I'll go. And I want you with me." Sayalara blinked. "Me? A princess? In an EVA suit?" "You're welcome to come," Reed said with a faint smile, "but I understand if you choose to stay." Sayalara took a breath, then squared her shoulders. "I choose to come. I will not let my people suffer alone." Within minutes, they suited up in the shuttle bay. Reed fitted her into the sleek spacesuit, checking every seal with care. Sayalara's silver hair and emerald eyes stared back from the helmet visor as he fastened her gloves. He felt a fierce protectiveness, but all he said was, "Stay close. Follow my lead." She nodded, and for a moment the proud princess looked like a student on her first lesson. Then they stepped into the zero-gravity chamber, their feet anchoring to the floor straps. The walls were lined with soft pads in case of collision, but both moved with confident ease. The hatch opened with a hiss, revealing the void beyond. The silver moon's surface stretched out below them, cratered and jagged. In the distance, the reactor building glowed dimly, surrounded by flashing hazard lights. Between them and the reactor drifted shards of rock, the micro-asteroid fragments. Reed pointed. "Those chunks are loose. Watch your step." As they exited the bay, the shuttle's thrusters puffed to life. They floated toward the reactor, on tether lines. Reed led, one hand on the cable, the other holding a sealed repair canister. Saylara followed, eyes wide at the sight of space. The blackness, the distant stars, and the pale blue curve of Veteran Prime. When they reached the breach, a thin ribbon of coolant gushed into vacuum. Reed grabbed the coolant line's outer housing and draped the seal over the leak. The canister hissed as he tightened the clamp. Yet the micro-asteroid fragments kept drifting dangerously close, threatening to puncture the temporary seal. Sayalara's voice crackled in Reed's calm. "Link." "Captain, the fragments—" "We'll be fine," Reed said, even as a rock shard ricocheted off the reactor's shield. "Hold the seal in place while I adjust the clamp." She floated to his side and braced the seal with both hands. Her breath hissed in the suit's mic. Reed worked the clamp's levers, sweat beading beneath his helmet at the effort in low gravity. Outside, the reactor's warning lights shifted from red to yellow. A good sign. They had slowed the overheat. Then a larger shard spun free of the debris field. It swept toward them. Saylara froze, eyes wide inside her visor. Reed shouted, "Move!" and yanked on the tether. Their bodies shot sideways, tether lines snapping taut. The shard struck the reactor housing with a thunderous crack, sending a shower of sparks into space. Reed landed hard against the reactor wall. Saylara slammed into him, but he caught her before she drifted into darkness. He held her firmly, then twisted to look at the ruptured coolant line. The makeshift seal had held, but barely. A fine mist of coolant still seeped. "Almost there," Reed muttered, his fingers fumbling with the clamp. His gloved hands worked with soldier's precision, driven by urgency. Saylara watched, then reached out. "Here," she said, producing a small patch kit from her suit pocket, one Reed had prepared for her earlier. "Use this." He took it without hesitation. Together they wrapped the patch around the seal. Reed tightened the final screws and the coolant flow steadied. The mist vanished. The reactor's warning lights turned green. Reed let out a long breath. "We did it." Saylara collapsed against the reactor console. Her eyes shone with relief. "I never thought I would help save a reactor in space." Reed floated over and gently steadied her. "You helped me. I could not have done it without you." Silence stretched between them, filled only by the hum of the reactor's systems. Stabilizing, Reed looked at Saylara through his helmet visor. She looked at him back. Neither spoke, both still feeling the rush of shared danger and triumph. Finally, Reed tapped her arm. "Let's head home." They triggered their tethers, and the shuttle's magnetic clamps drew them back. As they floated into the airlock, Saylara turned to him. "Captain," she said, voice soft, "you kept your promise. You spoke of trust, and today you showed it. I trust you." Reed's heart warmed beneath his suit. "Thank you, Princess. I trust you too." The airlock sealed behind them, and they watched the viewports as the reactor's glow faded. Inside the shuttle, Reed released his helmet and offered it to Saylara. She shook her head, eyes bright. "No," she said quietly. "Keep it. I want to remember this, but not through borrowed eyes." He nodded and removed his own helmet. His hair floated slightly in the low-gravity cabin. Saylara unzipped her glove and held out her bare hand. Reed held it gently, the first time she had reached out to him without royal protocol. As they descended toward the hydroponic farm, Reed felt a deep sense of pride. They had faced danger together, unarmored, unguarded, and still victorious. The farmers saw their shuttle touch down, and a cheer rose from the fields. Reed and Saylara stepped onto the ground, their suits still on but their helmets off. The people rushed forward, laughter and tears mingling. One farmer hugged Reed so tightly he nearly toppled over. Another offered Saylara a bouquet of glowing alien flowers. The princess smiled and accepted them, her eyes shining. Reed knelt, beside the plants, touching the nutrient solution tray, then looked at the reactor site in the distance. He straightened and addressed the crowd. "We are all part of this," he said, voice strong and clear. "Earth and Astrosa, soldier and princess, farmer and engineer. Together we face challenges. Together we will succeed." The crowd surged forward, voices echoing his words. Saylara stood beside him, offering her arm. Reed took it, and they walked among the people, no longer envoy and heir, but equals in a new partnership. That day, under the pale light of Veterans' moons, Reed Halverson and Princess Saylara proved that trust is forged in action, not words. And in the heart of the hydroponic farm, where plants would soon grow tall and green, two worlds planted the seed of true friendship. The council chamber was alive with color and sound. Banners of Earth and Astrosa hung side by side along the walls. Nobles in silk robes and human delegates in simple tunics gathered around the long marble table. At the head sat Princess Saylara, her silver hair gleaming beneath the soft violet lights. Beside her stood Captain Reed Halverson, unarmored and calm, his dog tag resting visibly on his chest. Reed felt the weight of so many eyes upon him, but it no longer troubled him. In the week since the reactor repair, he and Saylara had overseen the hydroponic farm's first harvest. Young plants had sprung green and vibrant under alien skies. Farmers from both worlds had learned to work side by side, sharing techniques and stories. Now the time had come to seal their partnership with the Treaty of the Twin Moons. Saylara, tapped the table with a slender fingertip, and the chamber fell silent. "Esteemed members of the Astrosa Council," she began, her voice clear and strong, "and honored delegates of Earth, we gather to celebrate a new era of friendship between our peoples." She gestured toward Reed. "Captain Halverson has shown us the strength of humanity's courage. Today we offer our trust in return." Reed stepped forward, bowing his head in respect. He lifted his eyes to meet Silara's. "Your Highness, members of the Council, friends of both worlds, I stand before you without armor because I wish to show you my true self. I bring not only Earth's technology, but its hope. We come as partners, not conquerors." A soft murmur of approval swept the room. From the corner of his eye, Reed saw Silara smile faintly. He continued, "Let this treaty be more than ink on parchment. Let it be a living promise. Let our children eat from farms we build together. Let our scholars share their knowledge. Let our diplomats meet as equals." An elder counselor, his robes the color of twilight mist, rose and picked up the treaty scroll. He unrolled it carefully and read aloud the terms: mutual defense, shared research in medicine and agriculture, exchange missions of artists and engineers, and the creation of a joint council to guide future decisions. As he spoke, delegates on both sides nodded and exchanged hopeful glances. When the reading ended, Princess Saylara took the quill offered to her. Reed stepped close, holding the treaty's other end. She dipped the quill in violet ink and pressed it to the fine parchment. Then Reed drew the ink across the page with a single stroke, his hand steady. Together they signed, the princess in flowing script, the captain in block letters. A moment of hushed awe followed. Then the chamber erupted in applause. Humans and Astrosans rose to their feet, cheering and clapping. Reed felt a flush of pride, not for his rank but for the shared achievement. He looked at Saylara, whose eyes shone with genuine warmth. After the ceremony, the courtyard beyond the chamber doors filled with music and laughter. Lanterns swung from crystalline trees, and tables groaned with foods from Earth and Astrosa. Spiced breads, glowing fruits, rich stews, and sweet pastries. Children chased each other beneath the lights. Farmers and engineers compared tools and trading stories. Saylara led Reed to a quiet balcony overlooking the festivities. Below, the first seedlings of their joint farm glowed softly in bioluminescent planters. The twin moons cast silver shadows across the fields. Reed turned to the princess. "You have changed my world," he said softly. "You took a soldier without armor and made him part of something greater." Sayalara's smile was gentle. "And you have changed mine, Captain. You showed me that true strength comes from the heart, not from power." She reached out and touched his dog tag, her fingers tracing the engraved letters. "I wore this during the treaty. It reminded me of your world and of your bravery." Reed offered her his hand. She slipped her gloved fingers through his unarmored ones. They stood close. Two leaders joined in friendship and respect. "Will you visit Earth?" Solara asked after a moment. "See where you grew up, stand beneath those blue skies?" Reed grinned. "I would be honored." He thought of the red soil farm of his childhood, of his mother's smile and the horizon that held all his memories. "And I will show you our greenhouses, our cities, our people." Selara's eyes sparkled. "Then let us prepare for that journey," she said. "Let our alliance reach even further." They turned together to the courtyard where music swelled and dancers twirled beneath lantern light. Delegates beckoned them to join the celebration. Hand in hand, the princess and the captain walked down the steps, greeted with cheers from both worlds. As they passed the rows of glowing plants, Reed felt a quiet pride in what they had achieved. Two worlds had come together, not through conquest or fear, but through trust, humility, and shared purpose. On Better Prime, under violet skies and twin moons, humanity had found its place among the stars, unshielded, unbowed, and full of hope. And the dog tag at Reed's chest glinted in the moonlight, a simple piece of metal that had come to mean so much: a promise of home, a symbol of courage, and the true armor of the heart.